Hi everyone, in this tutorial what I want to show you is the Syntakt overbridge. It is a VST plugin, VST3, I think an AAX and an RTAS plugin as well for your DAW. So what this does is it basically allows you to control the Syntakt via a VST audio instrument. The audio instrument won't work without the Syntakt and vice versa. So to connect it, all you've got to do is turn on your Syntakt, connect it to your computer via a USB, and then load in the VST plugin into your DAW, or if you're using Logic, an audio unit. So as you can see on this menu, what we have is we have the GUI. At the top, you've got your different screen sizes, so you can go from 80 up to 140%. On this drop down menu, this is where you pair up your Syntakt, so you can just, if you had more than one Syntakt, for example, they would all show up here, but because I've only got one, I just leave it on auto select. Total recall, that basically, I think it's like a panic button, but it basically says the device state can optionally be restored to manage by the plugin for total recall. We have a sync button, so the sync button is no sync, clock, or clock and transport. That is to sync it with your DAW's tempo. We have this button here which enables input routing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 via the main left and right, or the pre-effects left and right. Then next to that we have the pads button. So down at the bottom now, what they've come up is 12 pads. So these first 8 are the digital engines, and then 9, 10, 11, 12 are the analog engines. And then if we click on one of these, obviously they can be played within your DAW. They can also be played on the Syntakt itself. So if I just press number 9, for example, this one, you'll see that I can play the Syntakt from the actual unit itself. You'll also notice on this part here, this is the keyboard. So let's say we're on track number 1, which is this kick. Now what we have is we have a keyboard, a chromatic keyboard, so I can play the sample through the pitch of the keyboard of the MIDI notes. So that's handy for if you've got a keyboard in front of you and you want to play, I don't know, a melody or a bass line or something like that. Next to that is the kit editor, which is the screen that we're on, and the one next to that is the sound browser. On the top left hand corner we have the track sounds. We can select a track sound and then we can drag and drop into these track sounds. You'll notice some are red and some are green. That is because this particular track itself is an analog device, so that means you can only put it on tracks 9, 10, 11 and 12, not 12 because that's symbols. So 9, 10, 11. So wherever it's red you can't go on basically, but wherever it's green you can. So if we take that to that and then we press number 9, we'll notice that that sound has been loaded up onto there. Same for snares and things like that. So if we go on snares, we'll notice that we can only put it on track 10 and 11 and not 12. Let's do this the same. So this is obviously a digital device, so that can go on track 1 to 8. And it's just an easier way to get a kit built up. It would be nice if they had a little randomize button here. That'll be, if you just press that, you don't know what you're going to come up with. That would be nice to see, like a random kit. And then down here in the bottom left hand corner, these are the project sound pool. So these are basically sounds that you load into. For example, if I go onto this slap, I could drag that into there, and this is my sound pool for this particular kit. And then from there, I could maybe put my kick there. If I like that snare, put that there, and then as I come back into the kit editor and onto this, I could then, well, just pressing the pads button, I can then something like that, and it's quick and it's easy. By using this, it gets your ideas down quicker, and it allows you to create stuff quicker and on the fly. So moving on to the kit editor, so what we have at the top here is we have your track. So we have track 1 to 8, which, if we remember, this is the digital engines, and then track 9 to 12 are the analog engines. We also have 2 tabs for the effects block and the effects itself. So on the effects, we have the delay, reverb, we have external mixing, which we can control from here, and then we have a mixer, the overall mixer, and then the effects slider as well. If we have a look down here in the bottom left hand corner of the device, if we hover over something and we're not sure about it, if we just hover our mouse over it, you'll see that it comes up with an explanation for what it is. So this particular global mode, this switches pattern mix levels and global mix levels. So if we go over to just a digital engine, we can see the name of the sound setting that is put up. It's called Blop. We can rename that ourselves if we want. We can save it, we can load a preset, or we can clear. Up here we have 3 tabs that are in the sound setting. So we have the preset name, which is this box here. We have portamento. These are just portamento settings, so you can either turn it on or off. The time, the amount, legato only, glide style, the slope, a constant rate or time, and then gating. And then other, which is the pitch band depth, the octave, velocity to volume, legato, mononote priority, and filter key track. I won't go into detail what these are, because if you hover over them, an explanation will be down here. So if you just want to have a look or what they mean, just hover your mouse over it, and then that'll help you out. In this box below it, this is the synth. This is the actual engine. So if we go to track 4, this is a new sound, and I want to rename this. Let's just leave it blank for now. So on this synth engine, we could select the machine by hitting this tab here. So we can have all these engines. We have the bass drums, the snare, the percussions, the clap, the cymbals, or the synth engines. So let's pick PC Carbon. You can see that these parameters change to whatever the machine is capable of, and then we can dive in to this and basically create our sound using the VST instead of on the actual hardware. I particularly like using the hardware, but sometimes when you just want to chill out more and not really lean over the Syntakt, and it's just easier just to do it on this. You can also double click on these to send them back to their default values. So if we, for example, for this PC Carbon, we call this perk you later, and we press the perk button, so we're on track 4, which is this one. You'll notice that when I hovered the mouse over, it changed to PC Carbon. So if I go to vintage, it hasn't changed over, but and when I put my mouse over that pad, it updates itself. So if I just go back onto the perk here, then we notice that we can change we can change the sound and the timbre of it via these buttons here. The modulation tab is basically on your LFO page. So you have LFO, LFO2, pitch bend, velocity, mod wheel, breath, and aftertouch. So these here are basically modulations. If you had a mod wheel, you would set the LFO to, or whatever you want the destination to be, to whatever you want it to be, and then you would set that depth. So as you push up your modulation wheel, which I haven't got at the minute, that would change the tune to how much you push the modulation wheel up. So that's the same with them all. So pitch bend, velocity, mod wheel, breath, and aftertouch. Back to the LFOs, you can only set 2 destinations for these. So you can set that to whatever you want. Let's say the frequency, and then if we press on that button again, you can hear the filter envelope or the filter opening and closing to the rate that the LFO is set to. Moving on to the filters and the envelope, what we have is the bass width filter, which is on page 2 of the filter page. So this is basically a bandpass filter. You can remove them lows and them ultra highs, or you can do that by dragging and dropping on these buttons here, or by clicking these 2 here. So if you notice that with this, just like the software, if we have the bass, set the bass first and then bring the width down to whatever you want it. To control the bandwidth position, we could just alter the bass, and that alters the whole selection of frequency that it pushes through. So if I just reset them. So moving on to the multi-mode filter, what we have is we have low pass, high pass, bell, and off. This can be set, you can set the frequency, you can set the resonance and the Q type of the bell type. So for example, a narrower slope is a higher number, and a lower, nice gentle cut, less obvious. You could use that for the selective frequency. So if you were on a kick drum, for example, and it was quite muddy, you'd just take a bit out. You maybe do the search and destroy sort of technique where you lift up, and if it resonates there, just drop it down a bit. And then yeah, that's the filters. Or you can have a really narrow cut if there's just a frequency popping out at you too much. And then the envelope depth, which we can set via the filter envelope down here. So what we have is we have delay, that's the delay time for when the envelope starts. We have the attack time, reset the attack time for every time it's hit. We have the decay along with an infinite button. We have the sustain, and then we have the release. You can set these to infinite and then just alter the attack time to suit this. So if we have the envelope depth at 63, what that will do is it will take so long for it to reach that point, and it will stay there forever until if this is selected, until it's reset. Moving on to the amp. The amp is obviously an envelope. There is 2 different settings. So we have attack, hold, and decay envelope, or we have the ADSR, so attack, decay, sustain, release. So you'll notice that these notes down here, or the menu changes at the bottom. So on the amp envelope, we have the attack setting. This is the initial sound of the attack. We have the reset button, which allows you to reset when the sound is triggered or not. Hold function, that is how long the unit holds for. You can have that on infinite or set it to a certain value. And then the decay, which has got a nice gentle slope coming down, you could set that to whatever you wanted that to be too. Onto the ADSR, this is the similar. We have the attack, the reset, the decay time, or if you want it infinite or not, the sustain level, and then we have the release. Below that we have the effects. So we have the delay sends, we have the reverb sends, we have the panning left and right, we have the volume, and then we have the route into the effects block. So that's bypassed, that's going through the effects block. And that's the overview of a digital engine. If we go over to the analog engine, what we'll notice from that differs mainly is basically just the filters and obviously the analog sound. So on this we can pick our drum sound, we can snare, rim shot, noise generator, etc. But you'll notice that we don't have this bass width filter on the analog side, but we have more filter types. So moving on to the effects block, starting at the top left, what we have is the global track routing. So on this you can see we have tracks 1 to 8, which are the digital engines, 9 to 12, which are the analog, with track 12 being the cymbals. We have delay, reverb, and the in. The in is the external input. So if you had a mix, let's say, or you had a sound that you wanted to bring in and you wanted to take it through the analog filter or the drive unit within the Syntakt, you would take an input into the Syntakt, and then you would click on this button, and then you would be taking it through the drive feature and also the filter as well. So to select what goes into the analog effects block, instead of clicking on the sound or going this way and going down to this button here, the routing effects block, what we will find is if I click that on, you will see that number 2 is now selected within the effects block. Alternatively, if we wanted them 3 to come in, all we'd have to do is click on these buttons, and then they're now coming into the effects block, where we can control it by this first device here, which is drive. We can then go to this first device, which is drive, and then control how much we want it to be driven by. The next one up is the analog multimode filter. So we have 7 different types of filters. We have a 4-pole low pass filter, a 2-pole low pass filter, 2-pole bandpass filter, 2-pole high pass filter, a notch filter, double notch filter, low pass notch filter, or turn it off. So next up we have the amp. The amp, you can't really control the amp via the plugin. You'll have to add triggers on the actual effects block to trigger the amp, or to trigger these sort of envelope depths and things like that, along with the LFO, unless you have it on free mode. So yeah, you can set the amp to whatever you want. So if you wanted to do sidechaining and things like that, you can do that, but you could only do that if you have a trigger button, which is on the Syntakt itself. We also have, below that, we have the delay sends, we have the balance, the volume, and the envelope depth. Down on the bottom here, we have the modulation. So this doesn't need a trigger. You could basically just do this. That's on free mode. Trigger mode is where you would need a trigger down. So again, if I just put a few of these down, you'll notice now that it has been triggered. Hold 1 and then half. So that is the Syntakt VST audio unit for your DAW. It works harmoniously with the Syntakt. It'd be great if they could develop this even further, because there are so much more you could do with the actual VST itself, and it would complement the Syntakt beautifully. I mean, you wouldn't need to have anything else other than this if you're working inside your DAW. It's a great tool to have to create these kits. So for this, like this sound editor, for example, it'd be great to have a randomize button so it drops in random sounds, and then if you would like to lock the sound, it'd be good if you could just lock it like this lock button here. It would be that'd be ace if you could do that, and then you'd have different kits, different sonic tonalities within your kits. I mean, it would be even better as well to, on the sounds that you have, it would be good to just randomize a button. I know it takes it away from the joy of making the sound yourself, but sometimes when you press a random button, you don't know what you're going to get. It's exciting, and then you can tweak it yourself. It's just another sort of thing that I think would give the Syntakt so much, because right now I know what I'm doing is I'm just going around and I'm just playing about with it, and I'm just coming up with sort of similar sounds. But if you had a randomize button, you could basically come up with new sounds that you didn't really know that you wouldn't have even done before. There is a way around that. I have tried to do this within Ableton, so I will show you that now. If I right click down here and I group this, I will open this up, and then if I open the Syntakt menu up, I can press this button here called configure. Now, when I press this button and click on a parameter, it will show up down here. So if I click on tune, pitch sweep, punch, decay, square mod, mod feedback, modulation envelope, and then overdrive, click off that, these devices, these parameter values are now here, down here in the actual Syntakt. If I click on map and then I map them to each macro that is within, oops, down here, like that, and then I come off that, I can then randomize the actual machine itself. So if I just click on this, like that, so let's say I like that, it's got some real punch to that. So the decay, I will take the decay down. Oh, the pitch sweep's a bit too high. So pitch sweep. And that is a usable kick. And I would have never, I probably would have got there, but that would just by a click of a button and just moving 2 dials. You can also, in Ableton Live 11, you can add more macros to this. So you can add up to 16. So you could have the envelope, let's say the frequency, the resonance, the bass, the width. You could have the delay sends. You could have anything that you want really. If you just sync it to that, and then to save it, we go on to rename, just click on this as digital engines randomiser Syntakt, and then that way you can randomize what is within the Syntakt easily and fast, and then you can come up with a mountain of new material for your music. So the other thing that I will say on this is when you're selecting different machines, because all these values don't move, what will automatically happen within this is it will change over to this. You can actually see that this isn't updating, but the sound is. I mean, that's exciting for me. By just clicking a button, you're coming up with this whole new palette of stuff that you can use. So I will attach these to the Syntakt video series download. So if you want to obviously use this template for your your Syntakt in your DAW, well, in Ableton, then you can do, and then you can come up with a whole new palette of stuff. If you do want to get the Syntakt VST, all you've got to do is go over to their website. You go onto support, which is this page, pick a subject, go down to Syntakt. Syntakt will then come up, so you'll have the updates, you download the firmware there. You will have to download the Electron transfer in order to put the firmware on. And you will also have to download Overbridge. So Overbridge as well is a standalone sort of unit. I'll just show it you here, which is this here. You will see that I have my analog heat connected and the Syntakt connected as well. This status is active, whilst this one is just recording the audio from my DAW into my recording software for this video. So if you download that, you will see that when you connect it up to your computer, this should pop up and it will say active, and then within your VST you will then see it in here. So that is an overlook at the VST plugin for the Syntakt. I hope this has been some help to you. If you enjoyed this video, obviously just comment, rate, subscribe. You know, it helps the channel out and it helps me out. It helps keep me motivated to do more videos like this. So yeah, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one.